Now you clap. There we go.
We are. Now we're going. So, I need you to come into full character mode.
From Big Idea?
Big Idea.
Okay. Usually I have a script. Let me. All right. I'm in character now.
You're in character.
All right. Yeah.
Welcome to Directors. I got my boy Joey in the house. Thank you for being here.
Pleasure to be here.
Let's go. So we do this once a month, every month, throughout the school year. Normally without a camera staring us right in the face.
Yes, it's much more natural that way.
You not feel natural right now?
No, I'm just saying when you're performing for kids and it's just live, it's it's a different environment, you know? You don't feel like you have to be on. Kids are much more forgiving than I think than most people give them credit for.
100%.
Yeah.
We're allowed to be fully ourselves.
Yeah.
When naturally in front of adults we're trying to be anyone else but ourselves.
You got to be on. Yeah. I always think so we do the rehearsal thing, we usually do a run through of the script beforehand, and I've been doing it for a couple of years, and every single time we do it, I think this is either too cheesy or too hokey, or the kids are gonna see that I'm reading from a script. And even when we're standing up there and I'm literally having to look down to read words on a page because we don't memorize these things, they don't care. They're fully into whatever is going on. They're invested. They've put themselves in whatever world we're creating for them at that moment. And I love that because adults don't do that. Adults will sit through and they'll see they'll cynically look oh well, you don't know.
Yeah.
You're not doing this, or
I'm guilty of that.
Yeah.
Just being a severely overbearing critic.
Mm-hmm. Should we explain what we're talking about?
Because
we just jumped right into it.
We're going to.
Okay.
We are, and it leads me to that.
Mm-hmm.
You've been doing this. You've been doing the Big Idea for a few years now with Kenosha Elementary, and this is my second year with you guys, and I was just kind of thrown in.
Mm-hmm.
So as far as how it got started and how we got to be where we are with the Big Idea today, I have no idea. I'm just a piece of the puzzle that just fell in place. So can you just explain to me how TLC, the local church Grand Rapids, got involved with Kenosha?
So as far as how we got involved with Kenosha, I don't necessarily know that. I know that one of our church's values is would she weep? And that is the idea of if our church were to suddenly vanish, would our city notice and care enough so much that it would be a great loss to the city? Because that's how well we want to serve the city. To that end, we partnered with Kenosha Elementary, one of the Grand Rapids public schools, to kind of just be of service wherever we can. So we run, we've got weekly volunteers that go in and do volunteer tutoring. So just sitting in classrooms, doing one-on-one readings with the kids, helping them, being teacher assistants, that sort of thing. We do regularly, every year we do certain events with the school. So their fall, orientation day. We help run that. We do a cleanup day for them every year. So a couple of years ago, our pastor, who kind of heads up this whole project, Austin, came to me and was like,
shout out to Austin, by the way.
Shout out to Austin. He came to me and it was like, listen, we've got this new thing that we want to start doing. Can we figure out a time to talk about it? And I was like, yeah, sure. So we go out for coffee or whatever, and he's like, we've got this thing called the Big Idea. And basically it's a monthly assembly where we get the kids together and we introduce them to like a core concept. What we tell the kids is it's an idea that works inside of us to change the world around us.
That's awesome.
Some people might be familiar with the moral focus assembly if you have any experience with the NHA schools or something like that. But basically it's just like virtues to teach the kids. Yeah. There's a skit element. There is usually some sort of game element. There's a couple of video elements. But we get together once a month to introduce the concept. Yeah. And then throughout the course of the month, the kids are thinking about it, they're learning about it in their classrooms, their teachers are reinforcing it through lesson planning. And then at the end of that month, usually the teacher picks one or two students that have exemplified that core value. And it's pretty wide ranging. So we've got things like honesty, responsibility, humility, but even such things as like creativity, imagination, citizenship, I think was one of them. So it's not just like moral values and moral concepts. It's just like literally big ideas, like things that we can, large concepts that can be sometimes tough for kids to understand. So that's why we, bring it down to their level and make it more fun. My involvement comes in kind of like with the skit and the teaching aspect of it. So we have two people. Miss Bree is the other person who kind of teaches these concepts with me. She's the adult, and I'm like the goofy kid that doesn't know anything. So she usually teaches me, and I play this character who's who's constantly confused or doesn't really understand the concept and is very self-seeking. Like this past month, we did a lesson on humility. Yes. And I came in and I thought the lesson was on humidity. And all the kids were like, Mr. Joey, it's not humidity, it's humility.
I love that one. I love this month's big idea.
It was good, yeah. I've usually got some sort of goofy costume. But then over the course of the 45 minutes that we sit down with them, I end up learning what the value is supposed to be. I end up learning how I can exemplify the value, and they usually point out that oh, Joey, you're not. And then by the end of it, I have learned my lesson. I've learned my value for that month. And then the kids, by extension, they kind of see that growth and that change in me, and so then they kind of go back out and try to exemplify that throughout the course of the month. And then they get a prize or something for if they get picked for being we call them what do we call them? Student of the month.
Student of the month.
Well, if they get the student of the month, then they get to sit in a special chair and they get a crown and they get gifts and prizes and stuff because they did what they were supposed to do. So.
Oh, I feel honored being part of the team.
It's fun, right?
Yeah, it brings humility.
Yes.
A lot of humility to the table. For me, at least. I look at my schedule, my work schedule, and it's just one thing. It's back to back to back. It's just stacked.
Yeah.
And I remember when Austin asked me to do this 2 years ago, get involved as the guy, the hype guy.
Yeah. Oh, that's another element I forgot. So there's always some sort of non-scripted, non-related element just to let the kids have fun. So we used to have a guy named Cody, who's a professional beatboxer. And kids love that. But then he had to step away to unrelated reasons. So Austin
he was still involved that last year
to a degree, yeah.
Yeah, when he could.
So Austin thought to himself, all right, who's the next coolest guy at our church that we could? And so he asked Mr. G. And now Mr. G comes in, instead of doing beatboxing hype stuff, now he makes the kids do exercises. And you would think that they would hate that, but they love doing exercises. And he's pushed it. He's made them do push-ups and wall sits and just a whole like jumping jacks, crazy stuff to get these kids moving, and they're always like, "No, Mr. G, we got this."
This week was fun, man. This week was fun. Like getting a bunch of 5-year-olds to do wheelbarrow races.
Oh, it's so much fun. And then he plays the game with them, and so like he is purely like the fun, cool dude to them.
Oh man,
so
I just want to be that as cool as I am to those kids in real life someday.
Yeah.
When I grow up.
That's why I said at the top, like kids are super forgiving. Like they will see a version of you that you can't even see in yourself.
And I specifically want to just really spend time, like just some time in our involvement in the big idea, because I feel like a lot of people who haven't gotten an opportunity to be involved with children prior to starting their own family should consider being a part of something like this.
Oh, absolutely.
You get to meet so many different personalities. You have some personalities that are in these little kids belong to, it's a big personality that you see in an adult, yet within a child's body and a child's heart. And it's like a beautiful experience. And for me, like when I leave there,
you feel like you're on top of the world.
Yes. I leave there, I'm like, this is the best part of my day. And I carry it throughout the rest of my day. I feel like I bring a lot of joy and excitement within any room I walk into, but on those days, it's just a different energy that I walk away from that school with. And
it should make it clear, like that feeling is really just a byproduct. Like you don't do this to chase that feeling. You don't do this for the sole purpose of making yourself feel good.
No.
Like you do this because you know that it's enriching them and you know that they're getting a lot out of it, and the more you put into it, the more they give back to you. And it's not about, because if you wanted to just go and do something just to make yourself feel good, like there's literally 1,000 things you could do.
100%.
But like going and serving kids is like a special kind, like it's a reward that you didn't know that you could feel. It's really tough to put into words.
Well, it's probably for you, it's probably as difficult. I'm assuming it's probably as difficult as it is for me when people ask me, why do you not train adults as much as you used to anymore, and you instead only train children nowadays? I'm like, man, I really can't explain that to you, because it would mean taking out my heart and handing it to you and let it speak for me. Because I feel it different. My buddy Mario, I have been working with his kids the last 3 years, maybe 4 years now. We had a conversation on the phone one day, and I was like, "Oh, Mario, I feel like some days you could literally charge me, the trainer, for giving me the opportunity to spend time with your kids." It takes us back to like our youth. Well, me, I'm a dinosaur, as you say. You said it first. You said that you were an old man. I was just hopping on that. Me, but so the age side of things. I'm 38 years old, going on 39. You're 27. You have a level of intelligence that I'm still trying to understand. You are so well versed technologically. I'll say any sort of current events or historic, you're the walking encyclopedia.
I listen to NPR a lot.
So now you're the old man.
Listen, man, NPR is cool now.
Now you're the old man. I can't remember the last time I listened to NPR. I think I was in the car with my dad when I was 12 years old.
Well, that's the thing. Like, I have it on in my car like all the time. I haven't listened to another radio station in like 6 years.
Radio station.
I don't like the radio.
And again, that goes back to like your level of maturity and your knowledge. I can't recall the last time I've met anyone my age and lower, who has listened to the radio other than a music station when they got in the car? I can't. So my question on your maturity is this. I see you as a very intelligent guy.
Thank you.
The way you read those scripts during the big idea, the way you go into character is a gift. Is a talent that a lot of people can't just naturally fall into. Well, it's a talent, it's a gift, so you can't naturally fall into it unless you're born with it. And I thought you'd be more of a serious individual, because there's that saying out there, so the smarter you are, the more depressed you are.
Well, we can get into that too, because I am very, very depressed.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So that doesn't. How do you mask that when you engage with people? Because I've seen you at church.
Yeah.
I've seen you with the kids. How do you take yourself, your own personal feelings, out of the experience of engaging with people?
That is a very good question. So first and foremost, it's a coping mechanism, right? Like, one can't live with themselves in their, you can't live with your mental illness 24/7, but it's part of you 24/7. So it's easy to compartmentalize it for an hour or two on a weekday. And then like you go back to living with it again. Another part of it too is that generally no one enjoys being around someone that is constantly like no one just enjoys that. So if you want to like be out in the world and you want to like interact with people, you kind of have to like just put that aside for a little bit. Like, how boring and how sad would this podcast be if I just came in here and I was just like unloading all of the stuff that I've been working through over the last couple of months. Like, it may be a really good podcast, but I feel like it'd be super uncomfortable for both you and me if I did that. So for the sake of, social interaction, sometimes I'll put it away.
But you can do that on this podcast.
I can or I can't?
CAN.
Okay.
You can.
Okay.
This is the space where
I'm just saying, you asked a question, so like I'm explaining how I do that. I've always been a performer. Like I was doing like school plays and stuff like since kindergarten. And so like I love just like going out and like being silly in front of a crowd and making a fool of myself and doing that sort of thing. I like even this is perfectly natural. Like, I'm not intimidated by the camera. Like, it's a perfectly natural thing for me to do. So being that kind of person. But that, to your quote about like, the more intelligent you are, the more depressed you are, it's because I don't know a better way of saying this, but I feel like this is gonna sound terrible, but like stupid people tend to be the happiest people because they're not thinking about how terrible things are all the time.
They're more naive.
Yes, the naivete definitely helps. Leading an unexamined life also definitely helps.
Yeah.
But the more you start to just think about everything that you've ever done wrong, all the ways that you've failed, all the ways that you're going to fail, the state of the world and how things are never going to change, this and how that has brought you into a life situation that you can't see a way out of. Listening to NPR all the time in the car, like creates this scenario where you're just like, I'm very, like nothing in this world seems good. nothing in my life seems good. One of the things that I've been struggling with like significantly over the past couple of years is like my own self-image and my own sense of self-worth, which are both at an all-time low. And I don't view myself very highly. Every time I make a mistake, like in my marriage or at work or something, like it sends me into a downward spiral. You seek help for a little while and like maybe some things start to improve, but then you screw up again and you're like, well, like nothing's improving, nothing's working. And yeah, like it just starts to weigh on you after a while. And you just get into this feedback loop. You get into this state where you're like, I suck, everything sucks. And then you find yourself being depressed all the time. But yeah, to your point, like you can't express that all day, every day.
No.
It's a coping mechanism. Like you have to put it away. You have to put it on the bookshelf for a little bit and you're like, all right, I'll get back to you later. But right now I've got to go and, be a goofy dude in front of 50 fourth graders, or I got to go volunteer at church. So I got to be welcoming and I got to be engaging, or I got to go to work. So I got to be focused and on point and all that stuff. Because there's just not time in whatever you're doing to allow for that.
Interesting. Dang.
To anyone watching, I'm seeking help. Like this isn't something I'm wallowing in. So like,
no, but
we got therapy, we got medication, we got lifestyle adjustments. I'm running more, so like my endorphin levels are, raising. We're on the right track, but it's a long road and it's a difficult road.
It's always a journey, and every journey has pit stops, and every journey has seasons. So, to your point, no, you can't spend life being sad all the time, but life is also nearly impossible to live being happy, joyful, and excited all the time. Matter of fact, if you were happy, joyful, and exciting all the time, you probably need to seek help for that too.
If you were being happy and being joyful 100% of the time is naivete. Being sad all the time is to willfully ignore everything that's in front of you. Both of them, I think, are being happy all the time or being sad all the time. Both of them are different ways of just being stuck inside your own head.
Got it.
And not experiencing like what's going on around you. Because if I was depressed all the time, I am depressed all the time. If I was not getting outside of my head, I would not enjoy being a father to my son, because he's 18 months old and that kid doesn't know sadness, he doesn't know pain, he doesn't know fear. I mean, he kind of does, but not in like any significant way.
He's just a shy baby.
And if I was
a shy kid.
Yeah. If I was constantly depressed and constantly expressing that, I could not see the joy that was in front of me, and I could not experience the joy of being a father, because I'd be wrapped up in my own. It can be selfish sometimes, and it's difficult to recognize because you don't see it necessarily as being selfish. Sometimes you just see it as like, well, this is just how it is, right?
Yeah.
But if you don't think about it, it can be selfish.
So that recognition is part of that intelligent individual, the performer side of your personality. Man, this is so interesting, because as an outsider, I would have never imagined
that this was
picture you're painting for me right now.
Yeah. Well, again, it's not like this isn't something that I necessarily care to share, right?
But can I commend you for your consistent effort to serve and be present and be a light in front of the world?
Yeah, let me talk about that too. So I mentioned that like being inside of yourself and being in that space can be very selfish, right?
Yeah, it's definitely self-fulfilling.
Serving, the act of serving is a selfless act.
Yes.
And if we want to extrapolate and take the biggest, like take the mile high view of it, scripture tells us that like Jesus is our model of how to live.
Yeah.
And he spent his entire life being selfless and serving others, and not once, even at the brink of death, thinking of himself. Like literally, he's literally on the cross, moments away from dying, and he pleads with his Father to forgive the people because they know not what they do. So if I boil down my expression of faith, I see it to mean to be as selfless as possible. And serving is an act of selflessness. So that's part of the reason why I choose to put my own stuff aside, is because I'm like, whenever I walk into Ken O'Shea, I take a moment to tell myself, ultimately I don't matter here. Not in a negative way, but like this isn't about me. It's not about what's going on with me. I don't matter in this space right now. What matters is the kids and the lesson and their enrichment. So I can choose to put my selfishness aside and focus on them and what they need. Whenever I'm volunteering at church, I do the same thing. Like, this is not about me right now. This is about you guys, and welcoming. If I'm on the hospitality team, like welcoming people in. Mm-hmm. If I'm doing kidsmen, like teaching them the lesson. If I'm doing video stuff, like how do I capture the
experience?
Yeah. When I'm at work, like, and I'm serving my customers, it's not about how can I get this job done and how can I go home early. It's like you're the client right now, you are the customer. Whatever question, like my time, I like don't even worry about it.
Yeah.
Like if you need to take an extra 15 minutes to make sure, if I need to take an extra 15 minutes to make sure that you're taken care of, like don't even worry about what's going on at the end of my day. We're focusing on you.
That's awesome.
So that's how I'm able to jump into that, is by telling myself it's not about me right now. If Jesus was here and he was in this situation, he was doing the exact same thing, would he focus on his problems? Would he focus on like what was going on with him? No, he would feed these people, or he'd heal those people, or at the very least he would listen, and he would help, and he would serve, and he would do what needed to be done for others in that moment.
Wow. I'm just trying to soak it all in. Joey, where did you get your morality? Everyone gets their moral code from somewhere. Where would you say yours came from?
I would say my parents. I had a very, very odd and I would say not abnormal, but a non-traditional approach to churching growing up.
Yeah.
Most people around here in the West Michigan area like have gone to one, maybe two churches their entire life, and they get everything from, you know, Sunday school, and then, you know, listening to the worship service and the sermon, and then maybe they do Bible study and they do all that, and it's like a collective of people. I think I personally attended 7 or 8 churches growing up.
Wow.
Wide variety of churches.
Here in West Michigan?
Here in Grand Rapids, yeah.
Did you go to every church?
There's too many churches to go to every church.
I actually, sorry to cut you
Yeah.
off there, but you know, we're sitting in the middle of 4 different churches that all within 50 yards of each other.
Yes,
right
exactly,
now.
yeah. And all with a wide degree of different, like, granular philosophical and, stances on certain aspects of Christianity.
Yeah.
But my parents were very intentional. So let's see, where did we go? When I was born, my parents were going to Calvary, and then they helped found Mars Hill, and then we went to another place, and I can't remember that was, because we weren't there for that long. And then we were at Tabernacle for a while, and then we stopped going to church for a little while. My dad kind of did like home church.
Yeah.
And then we went to a place called First Evangelical Covenant Church, and now we're going to TLC.
How long have you been at TLC now?
Since 2018, September of 2018.
So 5 years.
5 years, yeah.
Okay.
And as a result of hopping around to a bunch of different places, you get a bunch of different perspectives and different things. But my dad and my mom knew that they were going to have to take a more active role in developing our faith and like showing me and my brothers and sisters like how Jesus fits into our lives, because we were running all over the place. I mean, just by the simple fact that you can't consistently like learn something from a Sunday school if you're switching churches every few years or something like that. So yeah, I would say it comes from them. My parents were big into acts of service and serving people. Our family motto is love people where they are. So taking the approach of, because what I feel like a lot of, Christian volunteering and Christian serving looks like is like, you have to meet me, like you're the person that's being served, but you have to fit into the model that I'm creating.
Yeah.
You have to fit into like either my standards or my rules or my schedule or something like that.
A lot of expectations.
Yeah. Whereas you go the other way, and it's like, even if it's not convenient for me, or even if I need to rearrange something or whatever, like I need to be meeting those people. So Big Idea is a perfect example. I don't say this in a disparaging way, but doing Big Idea every month is like actually super inconvenient. It's on Wednesdays, which are days that, those are days that I have to arrange childcare for my son that I don't normally have. He's not in daycare, and I usually just watch him all day on Wednesdays. So I have to arrange childcare, and the people that I have in my normal rotation of childcare are usually all busy on Wednesdays, so I have to find someone else. And it's in the morning, and most people can do the afternoon, but they can't necessarily do the morning. You have to be there by like 9 o'clock, which, from my schedule is really, it's a weird time for me at that point in the day. There's usually some sort of prep day where we have to arrange time with 3 or 4 people that have wildly different schedules. We usually end up doing a Zoom call, but when we were doing it in person, it was a nightmare to try to figure out. There's people on the back end that have to like read the stuff in advance and like find and make props.
Yeah.
It's super inconvenient for, I think, most people involved, but that's not the point, because like we're serving the kids. And so it's like, how do we meet them? If we tried to make everything fit to accord to our needs, it would be difficult. So that's kind of that's where that comes from, is like my family, we always did that. So my parents hosted Bible studies all the time. They would just say to us some weekend, like, hey, we're gonna go help this person with this thing. And I'm like, but I wanted to, spend my Saturday watching cartoons and playing video games. And they're like, too bad, we're gonna go help somebody. I'm like, okay. There's like a stint for 3 or 4 years where like we spent our spring breaks going and doing missions trips as families. We did that a couple of times. So when we'd come back from spring break and everyone was talking about, going to Florida or going to Cancun or going to someplace nice and warm, we'd be coming back and telling stories about, spending time in the mountains of West Virginia, like helping this family in this camp get cleaned up for summertime or whatever. And it was terrible, but then you realize like how much that helps somebody else. And the thing that I really appreciate, especially now, was that my parents always led by example and never like, they forced me to do stuff. Like I was voluntold to do things all the time. But it was never like, you go do it and we're gonna be over here just so you can learn how to do it. It was like, well, you're gonna go do it, but you're gonna do it with us and you're coming along for the ride. Wow. So like my mom would, be helping. One of the things we did a lot was help people move, especially people that couldn't afford to hire a moving company.
Yeah.
So like my mom would be, cleaning and packing boxes. My dad would be coordinating volunteers and, getting like renting trucks and stuff like that. So like they'd be putting themselves into that position of like, well, we're also helping. And it was, you knew that they weren't being either cynical or hypocritical. So it was easy to understand that like, oh, well, yeah, mom and dad are forcing me to do this, but I can also see that they're participating as well. So it's not like this is something that they're just making me do. Like this is something that they either want to do or feel that they need to do. And even if I don't enjoy what I'm doing right now, I can see that this is important to them, and that makes it a little bit easier to kind of accept the situation that you're in.
Yeah.
Yeah, over time that just works in your heart, and then you feel the need to like, well, like if you don't think about it, you're just like, yeah, I'm a person that volunteers, but then you're like, oh, mom and dad really tried to instill the value that like helping people and giving of yourself was a very Christ-like act to perform.
Oh man, thank you for sharing, to go into the depths of the details, your inner working world of your life. And just being very honest and transparent. And I don't think a lot of people even stop for a second to really recognize the magnitude of impact they make on a person when they just give them a little bit of their time. Sometimes in silence, or even just sitting down with them while they're doing their work and just them venting out, spilling out to you. And thank you for doing that on this platform, on this podcast.
Of course.
I really appreciate that, and even more appreciative of the fact that you're going so deep into your childhood, your upbringing, because we were talking earlier about how I started a real estate podcast or show that has completely gone the opposite direction out of my control, and it's now I'm built to proclaim God, walk in the path of Jesus, and just it's being a show and a focus that's focused on service.
Yeah.
But more importantly, focus on making an impact on the younger generation. And everything you just said, you just shared, makes so much sense to why this podcast or this show has to exist, is for the younger generation. And I commend you for I thank you. I'm grateful, and I'm so glad that, we rub shoulders leaving. I think we're talking about, we talked about Austin's dad passing and him being absent, taking time for the family at the moment. And which, if you're watching this, I'm just take a second to just say, like, listen, Austin he's a young pastor, young 27-year-old pastor with the mind and the heart of a freaking dinosaur. He's got so much energy. He's got so much information. He's so gifted. And he's gonna
with the fashion sense of a 27-year-old. That man.
His fashion sense can also be of an 8-year-old, because sometimes he just puts on some crazy outfits.
That man, but he's like his streetwear game is next level. Like that Jordan sweatshirt that he wore last month.
Yeah.
That was insane.
Was he?
Remember he found that sweatshirt
from the thrift store?
Thrift store, yeah.
Yes. That was, where did he even find something? He said he bought it like in Boston or something?
No, it was in Indiana. Like
Indiana?
He was visiting like family or something. He was coming back. He was in a thrift store and he found an original Jordan sweatshirt or something.
It looked like it was chewed up.
Dude's
guy
put like when you're editing this, like put up some photos of Austin in his streetwear. This dude is great.
Oh man! So he's not be in that chair soon enough too, and he's not probably have me put up photos of you at Ken O'Shea during one of your scripts as well. So this would be fun. But no, I was gonna say, like, he's I feel like he's gonna be he's in that age range. You guys have the same age. Mm-hmm. He's gonna be just as informative, but he's also right now just being so strong. And I just want to take a second to just say, like, thank you, Austin, for making this possible. Because without Austin, we our friendship wouldn't be what it is or where it is now. And just to be praying for him and his heart and his family as they go through this grieving process with his dad. Losing this battle with with cancer, but we know where he is. Yeah. We know that he went home to our real Father, to our heavenly Father. Mm-hmm. But Austin, we're just being grateful for just how one person, one connection can make an impact on so many people. Because that connection to this is going to hopefully make a lot of impact. And your story has so much to give. It's so much to give because you're telling me things that I would have never imagined about you, and I just want to keep digging deeper and deeper. And I have my shovel out, so I'm gonna keep digging. All right. So
I just want to say real quick before I move on, Austin has an amazing gift for connecting people and bringing people who need each other and who are compatible with each other. He's done that for me, but on purpose and inadvertently. I think 3 or 4 times. And it's amazing every single time I meet someone and they're like, oh yeah, Austin told me about you. Or if he makes an introduction, he's like, yeah, Austin. It's like, how does he know how to do that? He's so good at bringing people together and finding that right connection. So I'm happy that he brought us together too. I'm happy that he made this whole thing work and he recognized that you know what? Gwadue would be perfect for this role as the hype man that gets all the kids excited.
Which is interesting because I was just I remember sitting in my office. I get this text message. It's like, hey man, you got a minute? I want to talk to you about this about big idea. I'm like, well, first of all, what's a big idea? He tells me about a big idea. I'm like,
had you done anything with kids before this?
I train kids physically, sports performance. But not like
kids ministry or kids volunteering, anything like that? No?
I mean, I love kids.
Yeah.
I am a very conservative-minded kid in a sense. Behind closed doors, there is no chains. Everything goes. I'm as stupid as they come. But for some reason in public, there is just like a quiet.
You gotta, yeah.
I don't know how it just happens. But put me in front of music and tell me I need to inspire, motivate people, especially kids. A clown comes out that I didn't even know exists. It just happens to be named Gwadue.
Yeah.
But no, I hadn't done anything with kids before, and when he asked, I was kind of just taken, and I'm like, at the same time looking at my schedule, I'm like, how the heck can I make this happen? It's impossible. But you know, it wasn't so much that, it was a calling. And there's been times where, like, you know, I've had a few hiccups where I'm like, you know, my schedule's so tight.
Yeah.
And I've thought about it, I could do it a few times last year. I'm like, why are you still doing this? You can't. But then I ask myself, like, but you can, unless you choose not to.
Exactly.
If you explain yourself that you are involved in a kids volunteer program once a month where these kids are looking forward to see Mr. G, there's not a person on this planet that wouldn't understand that, you know, this guy needs to be there for those kids.
I know exactly what you mean, because especially the last 2 years with trying to figure out arrangements with, like COVID has made it a lot more difficult to be adjusting and whatnot. So last year we had to change the dates like a bunch.
Yeah,
it was getting really difficult to the point where I was like, as much as I want to do this, I can't. And I had to have a come to Jesus moment with Austin. And he gave me permission, like, because I was like, even if I had to move heaven and earth, I was making sure I was there. Because for the exact same reason, like, you know that you have a responsibility to these kids and they are looking forward to you. And I had to talk with Austin. I'm like, dude, I really can't. Like, it's not a lack of desire. It's just like, I literally cannot make this month work. And he was like, dude, it's okay. Like, don't feel bad for having to cancel. Like, this is something that we screwed up on our end, and we're not going to make you have to, you know, pay the price of us screwing up. So if you need to take a break, like, it's totally fine. Don't, which is not something that, like, that's not an answer that I expect. That's not something that comes naturally to me. Like, I expect to have to do that even if, like, things change, because, like, I've committed to it. I'm volunteering my time. I have decided and accepted this responsibility.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, when I completely understand the mindset of, like, why am I even doing this? I can't continue to do this. Like, my schedule is too tight. Or I said earlier, like, doing this thing is, as much as we like to do it, is super inconvenient for us to try to figure out. But then you remind yourself, like, the kids are there, they're expecting me. I've got a responsibility to, like, teach and engage with them. And yeah, maybe I could take a step back, or maybe I could quit, and it ultimately wouldn't matter to me, but to them, it's gonna be huge. Like, if suddenly Mr. G stops showing up. Like, I remember when Cody had to step back, that was huge for them. Like, they get excited whenever he shows up now, but, like, they were so upset that, like, oh, Mr. Cody's not showing up anymore. And it was a hard decision for him to make.
Yeah.
But they, like, that, like, it impacts them way more than I think that we realize when we have to step back and we can't. Like, for whatever reason, life just prevents us from having to do it that day.
And the craziest thing is, like, you know, you might step back, and even if it's a process of, like, an elimination where we set it up to, like, okay, we're gonna make it seem like you left and no one noticed, but they notice. Like, you know, because
You'll have someone fill in for you, like you'll text your buddy, or our kids ministry director Adam will sometimes fill in for Austin if Austin's got pastoral duties. And like we won't say anything, we won't address it. We'll just be like, hey, our friend Adam's here, and they'll be like, well, where's Mr. Austin? Mm-hmm. Or if Mr. G doesn't show up and I fill in for him, they're like, well, where's Mr. G? Oh, well, Mr. G had something. Where's Miss Bree? Like, they notice. And they care.
They notice. Well, do they notice so well? Like, what? It was Madison. I call her Madison, Wisconsin.
Yes.
Madison. At the beginning of the school year, she came up to me. Was like, you got bigger. She's like, you been lifting? I was like, how would you even notice? How would you even know that? Which I did. I put on about 15, 20 pounds more weight. And I'm like, this little mind leaves and is gone for 3 months, almost 3 months for summer, comes back and is able to I'm not growing anymore.
Yeah.
But when a child to recognize like a physical change on you, like it just makes you it just goes to show just how much they look forward, like they know who you are, like you become a part of their life and they're expecting you to be there. So like my question is, I'm sitting here, I'm like, I'm getting used to these kids, and now I feel like I'm gonna be here long enough to watch them leave us. So how do we handle that? How do we handle something that?
That's a good question. If I'm being honest, I don't really know many of these kids. Like, I'm there once a month. I recognize their faces and I know that they recognize me.
Yeah.
But I don't really know many. Full disclosure, the nature of mine and Gwadue's engagement is like we're essentially just performers.
Yeah.
We get up on stage, we goof around, we pass the time or whatever. But there's never really a point where we're like sitting down with the kids and getting to know them.
Yeah.
Austin does that, and Miss Bree does that. But for lack of a better term, there's kind of like a parasocial thing going on where like the kids know us, but we don't really know them. We know them more as just like an entity group. So I think because of the nature of that, it gets kind of easier to see them move on because we don't know them individually super well. It makes it easier for us to see like a class move on and another class come in because it's just a more group of kids. The danger becomes when like that's all you see them as, and you don't like consider your impact on their lives.
100%.
It becomes easy to like say, oh well, I can skip this week because it doesn't matter. It's just a group of kids. You have to take time, and we sometimes do this like at the end of each set, like we give them high fives, we say goodbye to them. Like sometimes they'll come up and they'll like want to hug us.
Dude, none of them gave me a high five this past week.
Oh,
they all gave me hugs.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I went for a high five.
Yep.
The first one said no, gave me a hug, and the rest of the group was just.
Yeah. So you have to put yourself in a position where you're reminding yourself that like, even though you don't really know them personally, and like maybe you can only remember like 2 or 3 names, they know you and you are important to them. And it's like your absence will affect them, and they are gonna be, like the older kids are gonna be more upset when they have to go on and they don't get to participate in Big Idea anymore because they move on to middle school. You have to be intentional about reminding yourself of that scenario and about that situation for them, because if you don't, then you'll find yourself falling into a trap of like, telling yourself I can sit out this month, or I can skip this, or I don't have to do that, or because it doesn't matter, because it's just like these kids just rotate out. You don't see them as individuals, you see them as an entity. that's kind of why I like doing kidsmen volunteering at church, because it's the same group of kids and it's every week instead of every month. And you start to get to know them a little bit better. Actually, I had to step away from doing that for a while, just because, like, you know, being a dad, I needed more time with my son. And it was really, really hard because I was getting to know a lot of those kids really, really well. They were getting to know me super well. And even to this day, like, a lot of them will just see me around at church and they'll be like, Mr. Joey, how you doing? And I was like, they recognize me and they know me and they're like, when are you coming back? And I'm like, oh, well, you know, we'll see. Yeah, you just have to be intentional. Like, the having that separation makes the transition for you easier, but it's also like it's a potential pitfall to your overall approach. And so you have to, like, insert yourself into those, like, more one-on-one relationships with those kids, even if it's something small like a high five or a hug at the end of the thing, to remind you that, like, this is important and they really care about whether or not we're here.
They do. Man, yeah, I'm glad, and I feel honored and blessed that, you know, I get the opportunity to every month. And I, you know, again, we can keep asking myself, like, we can keep asking me how this came to be, but for the most part, you know, it was meant to be, not how it came to be. So I have a few more questions for you. Were you and Austin friends prior to the big idea?
Kind of, I think. Honestly, don't remember, because we started in 2019, so I'd only been going to church for about a year, and it was in the middle of like a big transition. I don't really remember how we got connected.
How did he decide? What was the determining factor that you were a great fit for this concept?
Yeah. I think I was doing kidsmen volunteering at that point, so that was the first thing. He's like, well, Joey's volunteering with kids already, maybe he'll do this. But he told me specifically that, like, and this is where I was like, how would he know that? Like, how would he pick up on this? But he told me that, like, my personality seemed to fit kind of the foolish character model that they had in mind. And I was like, I mean, like, when he was telling me this, I was like, well, I know that, but what have I done that leads me to believe that you know that?
There's no way I could have picked that up.
Yeah, well, because, well, I mean, like, maybe you could infer that about my personality, but I've never, like, done anything specifically in a circle that he would also be walking in that would cement in his mind that, like, yeah, Joey's a performer. Like, he knows how to do that. Like, I honestly have no idea.
That's so wild.
Like, it's not a surprise because I know that about myself, but I'm like, what was the thing that made him think, yes, this is, and I even told him that too. I'm like, I'm surprised, like, because you're dead on, but what was it that was like, that made you think that this would be a good fit? So I honestly don't know. Maybe ask him that.
And same here, like, you know, when I first got there, I'm just like, you know, I don't have kids up.
Yeah.
I train kids. I'm like, again, this week was this past big idea, the last few of, like, you know, I've actually come to actually embody the hype man to these kids.
And I said it earlier too, like, but that's just Austin's gift. Like, he's able to recognize something in somebody and, like, connect them or put them in a position where, like, they'd be able to serve or excel really, really well in a way that, like, he just has that intuition about somebody. Like, maybe you didn't realize it for yourself, but he's like, something about Gwadue, like, and he picked that and was like, Gwadue can be the hype man. And now you're realizing that about yourself.
Yeah.
And you're like, man, like I really like enjoying that. I enjoyed this. I really like doing it. What did Austin see in me that led him to believe that and led him to be right about it?
Can't wait to have him in that chair to see all the what all the tricks we can get out of his.
Austin, if you're watching, get ready because Gwadue's coming with the heat.
I got some tricks. Hope you got your magic bag ready. But so I was gonna ask you about. You know, we're also in hospitality together at TLC. And I remember you walking into the warm-up late once, and this is when I recognized that you could just adapt. Torrin picked you to say the closing prayer.
So for context, every Sunday, our volunteers get to church an hour early. We have like a big old circle discussion about the service and the worship and all that stuff. Then we do breakout groups to pray together, and our lead pastor, Torrin, selects one person to kind of close everyone in prayer before we break and start the service. So yeah, I walked in late one day and Torrin was like, boom, you get to do it. Sometimes it's a blessing, sometimes it's not.
But you did it so well. I'm like, man, this guy is special. And I think, that also goes to kind of show, maybe that's where Austin and any other person will pick up that, that's a tip. Throw water at this guy, he's not pull out an umbrella out of nowhere, just save the day. So you're definitely an adapter, and I appreciate that about you. And same thing here, I want to again thank you so much for just I asked you to be on the podcast. You know what your response was?
I said yes, and then I asked questions about it.
You say, sure. I've actually never done a podcast before. And I was like, that's not how that's supposed to actually, that's not how that answer is supposed to kind of.
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
That's Siri.
Oh. That's another. Can you please be quiet? We're trying to record a podcast.
There are no timers set.
Okay. Bye, Siri. That's another thing I learned from my dad is say yes and then figure it out. Which is not perfect life advice, but it helps you kind of get out of your comfort zone a little bit. As long as you don't say yes to something that's absolutely insane, but within a certain reasonable expectation of skill and ability. So perfect. This one time, I got a guy emailing me that was like, hey, your name has come up. I need someone to run a teleprompter for this video conference thing that we're doing in 2 weeks. And a colleague of mine recommended you to do that. Is that something you can do? And I was like, absolutely, I can. He's like, great, here's the time, here's the place, here's the rate. And I was like, sweet, I'll see you then, see you there. Finished up the email and I was like, I have literally never run a teleprompter in my life. I don't know how, I don't know what I need, I don't know anything about running a teleprompter whatsoever. But I had 2 weeks to figure it out. So I bought an app, I downloaded the script, and every free hour I had in my week, I was just like, all right, gotta figure out how to do this, gotta figure out how to do this. And I went in and I did not show my hand at all at any point that I was brand new to this whole thing and had never done it before. And then by the end of the shoot, the guy who hired me shook my hand and was like, hey, thank you so much. I'm sorry we had a lot of problems. I appreciate you. You were the one thing that was going right this entire 2 days of shooting. And I was like, yeah,
that's
don't
awesome.
tell. But it's not an opportunity I would have got if I had said no, I've never done it before. Then he probably there's a chance he could have been like, it's no big deal. Like, it's pretty easy. You'll pick up on it. But like, more likely he would have been like, oh, okay, well, I appreciate it, but now I got to go find someone else. And like, that would not have been an opportunity that I could have taken. And so now, as a result of that, I have someone that can, like, is going to call on me the next time he needs something, like, out of the blue. I have a new skill that I have that I can market myself and say, like, hey, I can now also do this. And yeah, I've made connections, and I've learned about, like, I learned about a production company in the area that I'd never heard of that I got connected with because I said yes to something that I didn't know how to do.
Wow.
So kind of the same thing. Like, you said, do you want to do a podcast? And I'm like, sure. Never done it, but yeah, I'll absolutely. Obviously we knew each other, so it's not like I built a new connection, but I've got some new experience. I can now more confidently say in the future if someone else asks me to do this. And I, kind of learned a new skill a little bit, like how to be on a podcast. But yeah, like within a reasonable degree, I like say yes and then figure out how to do it.
You're a yes man.
I don't like that moniker.
Yeah. I was just testing.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a yes man to a certain degree, but I navigate the process. I don't say yes to everything. But I too also believe that when we start to become more illuminating within our community, within our sphere, we start getting the right requests asked of us versus things that we might say yes to that we don't really want to do.
Yeah.
I feel that way. Like I think it has a lot to do with our faith as well. I feel like once the stronger your faith, the more you're guided in the right direction.
Yeah, and I think too, like the say yes and then figure it out. That's something that God asks of us. Yeah. He doesn't like when we say to him, like, well, I got to get this ready and I got to figure this out and I got to do this first and I got to prepare in this way and then I can follow you. Like, not only does he tell us that that's not required in order to follow him or to accept his love or whatever sort of words you want to put into it, but it's almost demanded of us that we jump in eyes wide shut. Like we say yes to following Jesus, and then we'll figure out how to follow Jesus. Yeah. We say yes to accepting his love and his grace and his mercy, and then we figure out how to do it. And we don't even figure out how to do it. He just does it for us. Like he guides us and he provides us with his love and his mercy, and there's nothing that we have to do. All we have to do is say yes to it and accept it first.
That's awesome.
Way easier said than done. Way easier said than done. It's extraordinarily, at least for me, it's extraordinarily difficult to go in, eyes wide shut. But that is it's kind of the expectation, right?
It is, and I mean, it takes work, like anything else. Consciously being aware and recognition of your patterns, your behavior, and just your way of life in every way, shape, or form. And it's not easy to take yourself out of the equation and put Jesus first, but that's essentially what you have to do.
Yeah.
Which I mean is serve. So that being said, I have two more questions for you.
Okay.
The first one is, when did you accept Jesus as your Lord and Savior?
I think it was 5 or 7, somewhere in that age range. We had talked about it. Honestly, I don't really remember what led me to that. But I remember I was in my basement, and I was talking with my mom, and we prayed a prayer, and I accepted Jesus into my heart. My mom told me that, like, when you do that, the angels have a party, and I was like, cool.
Were you invited to that party?
Well, that's what I asked. I was like, cool, can I go? And she's like, no, you have to go to bed and brush your teeth. I was like, dang it. But and this is gonna ruffle some feathers. I don't like the idea of, like, as a child, accepting Christ into your heart at such a young age.
I am with you.
Because, and I say this very carefully because I know a lot of people are gonna disagree and a lot of people don't like that idea. I don't think kids fully understand I don't think they understand the gravity, I don't think they understand the scope, and I don't even think they fully understand, especially if you've grown up in the church your entire life. Like, going to church just becomes like some sort of like cultural furniture. It just sits there and it's always been there and you don't really know why. I don't think that kids fully understand that accepting. I think it's a better choice to make
as an adult.
Like, even as early as being a teenager.
Yeah.
Because then you can kind of start to get some like worldly understanding of like how important, how impactful accepting Christ. I honestly feel that, like, by getting kids, like, whenever they talk about, I don't know if you ever did like Christian summer camp, but whenever they talk about like, we had like 30 kids accept Christ into their lives, I'm like, I feel like that's just a box ticking exercise, because like the kid's gonna go home and is their life gonna be that dramatically changed?
No.
I don't think so. To that point, that's when I technically did it, but I didn't really commit my life to Christ until a couple of years ago when I was attending TLC. I got baptized when I was like in elementary school in an old church, but again, it was really just like a box ticking thing. I didn't really like feel, like, I didn't know why I was doing it. I was just like, oh, mom and dad said this is a good idea. I didn't make a conscious choice to follow Christ until I was, like 23.
Interesting. Well, I only asked because, I went through the same process.
Like, you grew up in the church?
I grew up Catholic.
Okay. Oh.
So I was an infant when I was baptized. And then life happened. I went from Nigeria, or from here as a child, as an infant to Nigeria, came back to the United States when I was 12 years old, completely culture shocked.
Oh, I bet.
Having to learn a completely new language and then navigate my beliefs from a village understanding, from a village perception to a city.
Is Nigeria like predominantly Catholic over there, or?
It's Christian, it's Christianity, right? So it's Catholic. There's a lot of Catholicism and Muslim.
Okay.
Islamic. But on our side of the country is predominantly Catholic.
Okay.
So I went through a few things in life, a few experiences, and learned like, okay, I've done so many things, but I still have this dude, Jesus, in my heart. I have, he's always calling my name, and but I feel like I let him down, like,
all the time,
significantly, from like compared to child to my commitment and my fellowship with him when I was a child. And but in me, I never made a promise to anybody. And I didn't
exactly
feel
what you mean,
like I owed anyone anything, or I owed even myself anything. So like that, not being aware of that commitment, but yet knowing I was baptized, I felt robbed of my decision.
Yeah.
So I, back in 2019, I asked Torrin to rebaptize me because I then decided that, moving forward, every promise that I've made is of my own, not of my parents' expectations or a societal determined governing system that a child must be baptized as an infant if you want to be a part of this community or this practice called Catholicism. And and since then, man, you know, the candles started burning. I was like, what did you just do?
Yeah.
Like, you know, like, I gotta take this serious now. And it's a commitment that you make to, I mean, knowing that when you make a commitment to a human being, for me, I'm like, you know, you make a commitment to a human being, you gotta perform when they're in front of you and they can see you.
Yeah.
Now, when you make a commitment to a spirit, that's everywhere,
all the time,
knows all your patterns, your navigation, your thoughts, your feelings.
It's a whole different.
It's a different kind of a promise.
Because you're not when you make it to that person, you're not with them all the time. So you can turn it on.
You can turn it off. But when it's so the gravity, the magnitude of this, it was a backpack I put on that had a mountain in it. And, you know, it took a while, but then it started to shape me. Like now it's in this place where I started building a podcast for financial gain, real estate, and now it's become literally a negative gain. And following and, you know, fulfilling that promise I made to him. And that promise, I didn't realize at the time was to impact myself as a younger person. If I were to be, as an adult, giving advice and inspiring or motivating a younger person. So that idea leads me to this last question for you. It's like, the question is simply this: like, what can we do as part of our church, as part of his servants, to continue to impact the younger generation? Because that ultimately I feel like it's unspoken, but I feel and think that's where we're both, that's the direction we're both going. So before I answer that, I want to touch on something that I'm going to bring into. You have said a couple of times that, like, this podcast, you started it as a means of promoting the brand of Gwadue and my professional life,
and your professional life, and, like, you know, promoting you and yourself, and using it for financial gain. Now it's financial loss, and you're promoting something completely different. It's always a surprise when something like that happens, that, like, God kind of works and takes the thing that you have and, like, puts it out for his glory. We are only ever stewards of the things that God has given us, right? Like, all things are his, all things come through him. We don't ever own anything ourselves. We are just stewards of the thing that he provided for us. He, in all ways, gave you this podcast. It is ultimately his podcast. It is ultimately his equipment. He has just given it to you to use for the time being, and has tasked you with being a steward of his glory, right?
Right.
Yeah. So, in that, with that in mind, I think the best way that we can help the next generation is to teach them how to be good stewards. Stewards of his word, stewards of his gifts, stewards of his world. Because we're not going to be here forever.
No.
So the stuff that we have, and the words that we have, and the ideas and the lives and all this stuff, it's going to be passed on to somebody else. We're going to have it for a little while, and then we're going to give it to someone else. Secondly, it isn't ours. Everything comes from Christ. And so when you're borrowing someone else's stuff, like, you almost take care of it better than you would your own stuff, right? if we think about it that way, then like nothing is ours. Like we have to take care of the things that God has given us almost better than we would want to if we thought it was our own. And those are not innate concepts that I think most people think about, like especially in our culture of America, like what's mine is mine.
Yeah.
But we can't think about it that way, and we have to teach kids that like you're just holding on to this. Whether it's something physical, like an object, or something more conceptual, like your land or your home or something like that. But even something as important as like, you know, the concept of God's grace. Like we are stewards of sending that message. Like whenever we teach kids about, like whenever I'm doing kidsmen and we're teaching kids about, you know, like the fruit of the Spirit, like I'm not telling the kids that. God is telling that the kids, I'm just the steward of his word, right? I'm the vessel that he's speaking through. Whenever Torrin steps up on stage and he preaches a really good sermon, he's not telling me anything. He's not sharing with the crowd. God is. Torrin is just the steward in that moment of sharing that word and that message. But being a steward is that's not a thing that I think we're innately born with, right? So teaching the next generation how to be a good steward of all the things that God gives us, I think is, at least to me, is one of the most important things that we can teach.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
And I'll say one more thing to that. Because we are stewards, like, and because we have to, you know, pass on the idea of continuing to give to someone else instead of taking things for ourselves kind of has like a double effect. Like not only are we holding on and caring for the gifts that God has given us, but we're also learning how to give those things to other people. And I think the more that you learn to give of yourself and give of everything that works inside of you and just makes that your default state of like, how do I give? How do I serve? How do I help? Instead of how do I, you know, take things for me and provide things for myself. So.
Thank you, man.
Yeah.
So I lied.
Yeah.
Those are my last questions. I have just closers.
Yeah.
We need some more people volunteering at TLC, man.
Yeah. Get in the comments. We need people.
So
no, we have a ton.
We do, and it's growing. The church is growing a lot.
Yeah.
And the last three services we have for Easter were all pretty full.
First one was 8 a.m. Not everybody showing up to that, but it was dense.
7 a.m. to go to church, which I mean, it should be. I'm more excited to go to church than I am to work.
Mm-hmm.
So to be honest, I'll go anytime. But so how do we? How can you and I go about getting more youth or younger, the college generation, the current college students involved in the church? And then we don't have. I mean, we can. I'd love to discuss that with you because I'd love to have you back on here again, and we can share our plan and how we can send out an invitation for anyone seeking a church to call home.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I don't have an answer for that right now.
And we can probably work with Torrin and Austin and everyone else to kind of cultivate.
We're gonna have to get more chairs in here, but yeah.
Good. Got more director chairs coming.
All right.
But no, man, I appreciate you coming on. Thank you for making this possible.
Yes.
It was an honor having you, and thank you for going deep.
The honor is all mine.
Last question.
Yeah.
How can I pray for you?
I am, later this afternoon, I'm gonna go have a meeting with someone about a job that I've been trying to get for the last year or so. This is an opportunity that I've been pursuing for a long time that I think would be ultimately really good for my family. It would provide a degree of financial stability that my wife and I have not been able to experience in a while, along with flexibility that would make, that would be a little bit more compatible in our lives, and would also be a little bit more fulfilling and enriching from a career and professional standpoint that I've been feeling kind of draining. I don't really feel like I've been fitting where I'm supposed to be. So I'm really hoping that meeting later kind of yields fruit, because I think this is something that I think God has been pushing me towards. I don't know what the missing ingredient is that's been holding me back. So that's the immediate thing right now, is that goes well.
Well, thank you, man. I'll definitely be keeping you in my thoughts and prayers as soon as you leave here. And bro, thank you so much for this.
Thank you for having
discourse, man. This is great. And for your first podcast.
Did I do well?
You destroyed it.
Sound off in the comments. Tell me if I did well.
You destroyed it in a good way. You did excellent. Thank you. Guys, thank you for tuning in. We'll see you on the next podcast. Like the podcast, subscribe to the channel so we can continue to grow this channel. Share with friends. We want to continue to just share information that's not out-of-worldly, complicated to apply to your own life, to especially the younger generation. We want you, this is your world. We're just stopping in to say hello, and we'll be leaving here soon. So we want you to start taking control now and making an impact for within your own friendships, within your own families, and for the next generation that comes after you. So thank you guys for viewing. Subscribe. Pray for Joey as well. Pray for Danny. It's Danny's dad. We are going to continue to build together. So let's keep winning. Thank you guys. See you soon.
Bye-bye.